Hey everyone, welcome to Life Reflections. Today I'm sharing a life story that might just hit home for you. If you enjoy it, give it a thumbs up, drop a comment with your thoughts, and hit that subscribe button to join me for more moments that matter. Let's dive in.
The evening air in Rome was warm, the city's golden glow casting long shadows over the street as Anna walked into the exclusive Michelin-starred restaurant. The atmosphere was upscale, full of laughter, the clink of fine glassware, and the quiet hum of conversation. The family had arrived before her, settling in for a grand celebration, but the moment Anna entered, a small, unsettling detail hit her like a slap to the face. Her seat was missing. It wasn't just any seat, it was the spot she had meticulously planned for herself at the center of the table. The place where she, as the orchestrator of this extravagant event, had reserved her spot. But now? Nothing. No chair, no place setting, no acknowledgement of her existence in this meticulously planned celebration. As her husband Sean sat down at the head of the table, chuckling lightly, he turned to her with an almost amused look. "Oops," he said, as if it were an innocent mistake. "Guess we miscounted." The family, his family, burst into laughter. There was no hesitation, no awkwardness. They just laughed, clearly used to their world of perfect, orchestrated moments. Anna stood frozen, feeling the weight of their laughter press down on her chest. But it wasn't just the absence of a seat that stung. It was the realization that this wasn't an accident. No, this was deliberate. This was her official exclusion from the very family she had tried, time and again, to fit into. For a second, it felt as if the world had paused. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears, feel the cold burn of humiliation rising in her chest. Every word she'd heard in the past, the casual dismissals, the subtle digs, the quiet jabs about her humble beginnings, seemed to echo louder than ever in that moment. But then something inside Anna shifted. The overwhelming rush of emotion, humiliation, anger, frustration, melted into something different. A cold, steady calm took over her body. She straightened her posture, lifting her chin with an almost imperceptible shift in demeanor. Her voice, when it came, was calm. Clear. Unshakable. "Seems I'm not family." Those 4 words hung in the air like a heavy weight, silencing the laughter around the table. Time seemed to stretch for a moment, and the eyes of the Caldwell family, 12 pairs in total, shifted from shock to something else. Uncertainty. Guilt. Fear. But none of them spoke. They didn't know what to say, how to respond, because no one had ever dared to say what Anna had just said, especially not in front of them, in front of their carefully crafted world of privilege. Anna's gaze moved slowly around the table, taking in each face, Eleanor, her mother-in-law, sitting with her flawless smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, Richard, her father-in-law, looking both uncomfortable and complicit, Melissa, Sean's sister, who wore a smile that seemed more like an accusation. The others at the table, Anna's extended family-in-law, looked uncomfortable, caught between the awkwardness of the moment and the polite need to keep up appearances. And Sean? He looked up from his seat, half rising in faint concern, but Anna could see the fake nature of it all in his eyes. His concern wasn't for her. No, this wasn't about her, this was about the image they all needed to preserve. They were all waiting for her to break, to be the drama they had written her to be. But Anna didn't break. Not this time. She didn't shout. She didn't storm out. Instead, she turned on her heel, the echo of her steps as she walked away from the table a final statement. A declaration that this time, they hadn't won. The family sat in stunned silence. The calm that had enveloped Anna was still with her as she exited the restaurant, the hum of conversation fading into the background, replaced by the buzz of her phone coming to life. The messages would come. The calls would follow. They always did. But this time, it was different. Anna had finally realized that she wasn't just the outsider in this family, she was the one who held the power. The missing seat wasn't just a mistake. It was the catalyst for everything that followed. It was the moment she had waited for, the moment that would set in motion her ultimate plan for revenge. As she pulled out her phone, her fingers moved with precision, opening the event management app. She had 30 minutes. 30 minutes before the Caldwell family would realize just how far their carefully constructed world would fall. And in that half hour, she would take back everything they had tried to strip from her, her dignity, her pride, and her sense of self. The story of Anna's revenge was just beginning, but in that moment, the stage was set. And the Caldwell family, perched high on their pedestal of wealth and status, had no idea what was coming next. Anna Morgan had always prided herself on building something from nothing. She had never been handed anything in life. Growing up, she had watched as the world around her seemed to operate on an unspoken set of rules that were reserved for the privileged few. She was determined to carve her own path, to prove to herself and the world that success wasn't dictated by birthright or connections, but by hard work, intelligence, and sheer willpower. As the founder of Elite Affairs, one of Boston's premier event planning companies, Anna had built her reputation from the ground up. Every gala she orchestrated, every wedding she flawlessly executed, and every corporate gathering that turned into a major social event bore her signature style, elegance, precision, and a dash of creativity. Her attention to detail was unmatched. Her ability to make the impossible happen made her a sought-after name in the world of high society. It was during one of these events that she first met Sean Caldwell, the man who would later become her husband. He was exactly what Anna wasn't used to, a man born with a silver spoon in his mouth, someone who had never had to struggle, someone for whom the rules were different. But there was something about him, his charm, his smile, the way he made her feel like she belonged, even if only for a moment. They met at a charity gala for the Boston Children's Hospital, an event that Anna had organized for months. It was the type of event where the city's elite came together to be seen, to show off their wealth and status. But Sean, with his carefully combed dark hair and his perfectly tailored suit, was different. He wasn't there to flaunt. He was there because he genuinely cared, or at least, that's how it appeared to Anna. "Are you the wizard behind all this?" he had asked her, gesturing to the transformed ballroom, which looked nothing like the sterile, corporate space it had once been. His voice had a warmth to it, a genuine curiosity that made her heart skip a beat. Anna chuckled, flattered by the compliment. "Something like that," she said. "I'm Anna." They hit it off immediately, and as their relationship progressed, Anna started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she had found someone who saw her for who she truly was, not just as the event planner behind the curtain, but as a person. But even from the very beginning, there were subtle signs that something wasn't right. His family, particularly his mother, Eleanor, didn't seem to appreciate Anna's success. They were polite, but there was always an undercurrent of condescension. Eleanor's smile never quite reached her eyes, and her compliments always felt like they were laced with thinly veiled judgment. Anna couldn't help but notice the subtle comments about her self-made success, as if it was something to be admired, but also something that made her different. Something that set her apart. "Self-made success is so American," Eleanor had said at their first dinner together as a couple. "It's impressive, of course. But I suppose it has its place." Anna brushed it off at first. She was in love. She had found someone who made her feel valued and cared for, even if his family couldn't fully accept her. But the cracks were starting to show. Sean never seemed to stand up for her when his family subtly undermined her. It was as if he didn't want to rock the boat, to disturb the delicate balance of his family's expectations. When they got married, the tension only grew. It was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, but the wedding had been riddled with stress. Eleanor had an opinion on every detail, from the venue, not traditional enough, to the menu, too adventurous, to the guest list, missing key society names. Despite Anna's successful career, her background was never quite enough to make her part of their world. Anna planned every detail herself, unwilling to trust anyone else with her own wedding, but Eleanor's interference was constant. Her unsolicited advice became a regular occurrence. "Anna has such a good eye for these things," Eleanor would say to her friends, patting Anna's hand with a condescending smile. "It's almost like having a personal party planner in the family." Sean was there, but he never really defended Anna. He shrugged it off with a gentle smile and told her, "That's just how my mother is." Don't take it personally. But it was personal. Every little remark, every subtle jab, chipped away at Anna's confidence. As the years passed, the undermining only grew more systematic. Despite using Anna's company for events, the Caldwell family constantly questioned her decisions, changed plans at the last minute, and took credit for her ideas. She was treated like a hobbyist, a charming accessory to their wealth and status, never as the successful businesswoman she truly was. But Anna persevered. She threw herself into her work, into her marriage, and tried to fit into a world that never seemed to fully accept her. She focused on her career, believing that eventually, Sean's family would come around, that they would see her for what she had built, not just where she came from. When the opportunity to plan Eleanor's 70th birthday in Rome came up, Anna saw it as a chance to prove herself. This was going to be her crowning achievement. A week-long celebration in the Eternal City, culminating in a grand dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant with a view of the Colosseum. It was the perfect event, the kind of thing that would solidify her place in Sean's family's world. She poured every ounce of her expertise into making it flawless. But as Anna started to make arrangements, the first cracks in the Caldwell family facade began to show. Deposits for venues were delayed. Vendors called her, asking about payments. When she mentioned it to Sean, he brushed it off, claiming that the family accountant was simply being cautious with international transfers. But something didn't sit right with Anna. She started looking deeper into the financials, and what she found shook her to the core. The Caldwell fortune wasn't what it seemed. Investments were failing. Properties were mortgaged to the hilt. Lines of credit were maxed out. And Anna, always the professional, used her own company's credit line to secure deposits when necessary, convincing herself it was just temporary, that once the birthday celebration was behind them, Sean would explain everything. But then Anna discovered something else. She never meant to check Sean's phone that day. It was a moment of weakness, a fleeting instinct that led her to open a message thread from Vanessa Hughes, Sean's college girlfriend, the one his family had always hoped he would marry before he met Anna. The messages were clear, plans were being made, a future was discussed, and yes, a baby was coming. A baby that would be born in a few months. Anna's hands trembled as she read the messages, her world crumbling around her. She took screenshots, forwarded them to herself, and deleted the evidence from Sean's phone. The betrayal was complete. She had known something was off, but now she had undeniable proof of Sean's deceit. He had never truly left Vanessa behind. The family had always expected him to come back to her. Anna was just a temporary diversion, a woman to fit the mold of Sean's public image, until he was ready to pick up where he'd left off. The final straw came when Anna stumbled upon a draft of separation papers, prepared by the Caldwell family attorney, dated just 2 months earlier. The terms were insulting, pennies compared to what Anna was entitled to, and the plan was clear. Sean was going to publicly announce their divorce at Eleanor's birthday dinner, spinning it as a mutual decision that was amicably reached. That was the moment Anna knew. The entire week in Rome wasn't just a celebration of Eleanor's birthday, it was going to be her public humiliation. A calculated exit designed to make Anna seem like the villain, the unsuitable wife who couldn't handle the pressure of the Caldwell family life. And that's when the fury inside Anna began to simmer. It wasn't just about the family's wealth or the way they had treated her. It wasn't even about Sean's infidelity. It was about reclaiming the one thing they had always tried to take from her, her sense of self-worth. The moment had arrived for Anna to take control. The family had underestimated her. They had thought they could use her, discard her, and publicly humiliate her. But Anna wasn't going down without a fight. She would show them all exactly who they had underestimated. As the days counted down to Eleanor's 70th birthday celebration in Rome, Anna threw herself into the event planning with all the passion and expertise she had honed over the years. She had been hired to orchestrate the entire event, the luxurious dinners, the intimate tours, the grand finale at the Michelin-starred restaurant overlooking the Colosseum. This should have been her crowning achievement, a masterpiece that would showcase not only her talents but also her place in Sean's world, a world that had always been just out of her reach. But the closer the event came, the more Anna began to notice things that didn't quite add up. What had started as a dream job was slowly revealing itself to be a nightmare. Anna was used to managing high-profile events for the city's elite. She had organized everything from extravagant galas to intimate society weddings, all while maintaining the discretion and professionalism that her clients expected. But there was something different about the Caldwell family. It wasn't just their wealth or their impeccable reputation that made them stand apart, it was their sense of entitlement, their belief that everything should revolve around them, and their belief that they were above reproach. From the moment Anna had agreed to take on this event, she felt the familiar pressure of catering to the Caldwell family's every whim. But this time, the stakes felt higher. This event wasn't just another job, it was a test. It was a chance for Anna to prove that she belonged, that she could master the most challenging event in the Caldwell family's history. This was her opportunity to finally win their approval, to show them that she was more than just a self-made woman who had somehow wormed her way into their privileged world. But as she immersed herself in the planning, small details began to raise red flags. The first sign that something was amiss came when the family's payments for the event venues were delayed. At first, it seemed like a minor issue, nothing that couldn't be explained away by a simple miscommunication or logistical hiccup. After all, she had worked with many wealthy families who were notorious for having their own way of handling finances. But as the days passed, Anna's concern grew. Vendors began calling her directly, asking about payments that had yet to be received. As the event planner, she was ultimately responsible for ensuring that the finances were in order. But the more she dug into the situation, the more she realized that something wasn't right. Anna mentioned the delayed payments to Sean, expecting him to brush it off as a simple misunderstanding. After all, they had been married for several years now, and Sean had always been the type to smooth things over. But this time, his response was different. He was evasive, dismissing her concerns with a vague excuse about the family accountant being cautious with international transfers. He reassured her that it was all under control. But Anna wasn't convinced. There was something in his voice, a hint of nervousness, that set her on edge. One night, while Sean was in the shower, Anna found herself at his laptop. It wasn't intentional, she wasn't snooping, but as she closed the browser window, her eyes caught a glimpse of an open file. It was a set of financial statements that should never have been left open for her to see. Without thinking, Anna clicked on the file and began scrolling through the pages. What she saw made her blood run cold. The Caldwell family's financial situation was in shambles. Investments had gone south, properties were mortgaged to the hilt, and lines of credit were maxed out. The once glorious Caldwell fortune was crumbling beneath the weight of bad decisions, poor investments, and excessive spending. Anna's heart raced as she absorbed the magnitude of what she was seeing. The family that had always seemed untouchable, invincible, was struggling to maintain the appearance of perfection. But it wasn't just the financial ruin that troubled Anna. As she continued to examine the documents, she saw something even more disturbing, signs of a deep betrayal, not just from the family but from Sean himself. Anna had always been proud of her ability to read people, to trust her instincts. And everything inside her screamed that something was off. Her gut told her that Sean was hiding something from her. She had always suspected that the Caldwells kept secrets, but this was something else. This wasn't just a family with money problems. This was a family with skeletons in the closet, and Anna was beginning to realize that she was one of them. As she pieced the puzzle together, Anna's suspicions grew. Sean's behavior had been odd lately. He was distracted, distant, and more secretive than usual. He was spending more time away from her, sneaking off to meetings with his father and avoiding conversations about their finances. When Anna confronted him about it, he brushed her off with the same dismissive tone he always used when he didn't want to deal with something uncomfortable. But Anna wasn't buying it anymore. She had seen the emails, the bank statements, and the contracts. She had seen the lies. The final blow came when Anna accidentally discovered a draft of separation papers on Sean's phone. The papers, prepared by the family's attorney, outlined the terms of a divorce settlement, one that offered Anna a fraction of what she was entitled to. But what made her stomach churn wasn't the settlement itself, it was the plan. The Caldwell family had orchestrated everything, including the timing of the divorce announcement. And it was all going to unfold at Eleanor's birthday dinner in Rome. Anna's hands shook as she read through the details. The plan was clear. Sean would publicly announce the divorce at the dinner, framing it as a mutual decision made amicably. The narrative was already set. Anna would be the one who couldn't handle the pressure of being a Caldwell, the one who couldn't fit into their perfect world. She would be the one who was difficult and unfit to be part of their elite circle. The realization hit Anna like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just a family dinner. This was her public execution. The Caldwells had planned for her to be humiliated in front of their friends, their colleagues, and the high society world they ruled. They had been building this moment for months, waiting for the perfect opportunity to dispose of her once and for all. But Anna wasn't going to let them have that satisfaction. She wasn't going to let them make her the villain in their story. She had been underestimated for far too long. She had always been the outsider, the self-made woman who didn't quite belong. But now, she knew the truth. This wasn't about her failing to fit in. This was about them trying to destroy her, to erase her from their perfect world. Anna's blood boiled with a mixture of rage and determination. She had built her career from nothing, had fought tooth and nail to establish herself in a world that had always looked down on her. And now, she was going to use that same strength to take back control. The cracks in the Caldwell family's perfect world were already starting to show. They just didn't know it yet. And Anna was ready to make them feel the full force of her defiance. She had spent years being the obedient wife, the loyal daughter-in-law, the silent sufferer. But those days were over. The moment for her to reclaim her story had arrived. As she stood there, reading through the divorce papers one last time, Anna felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about freedom. It was about taking back the power they had stolen from her and using it to dismantle the empire they had built on lies. The stage was set. And when the time came, Anna would make sure the world saw the Caldwells for who they truly were. Not the untouchable elite, but a family built on deceit, betrayal, and greed. The countdown to Rome had begun. Anna had always been the kind of person who could sense when something was off. She had spent years meticulously planning events for others, and in doing so, she had learned to pick up on the smallest of details, the subtle shifts in tone, the seemingly innocent looks exchanged between people, the moments where someone's actions didn't quite match their words. Anna had always been able to read people, to understand when things were not as they seemed. But nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to discover. As the days passed and the anticipation for Eleanor's 70th birthday celebration grew, Anna had noticed that her husband Sean's behavior had become more distant, more guarded. He had always been a man of few words, but lately, his silence seemed heavier, his eyes avoiding hers more frequently. It wasn't just the quiet moments, though, it was the way he moved around the house, the way he interacted with her family, the way he seemed almost removed. It was as if the man she had married had become a stranger. But Anna wasn't one to sit idly by. She had always been proactive, always been the one to step in and take control when things got difficult. This was no exception. She needed answers, and she wasn't going to wait for Sean to give them to her. It started innocently enough. She had been tidying up their bedroom when she noticed Sean's phone left unlocked on the nightstand. Normally, Anna would have respected his privacy, but something about the way he had been acting recently made her uneasy. She told herself she was just being paranoid, but the curiosity gnawed at her until she couldn't ignore it any longer. With a deep breath, Anna picked up the phone and began scrolling through the messages. The first few were from his work colleagues, simple exchanges about meetings and upcoming projects. But then her thumb stopped scrolling. There, nestled between the work messages, was a thread from someone named Vanessa Hughes. The name immediately caught Anna's attention. Vanessa was Sean's college girlfriend, the woman his family had always adored, the woman they had hoped Sean would marry before he met Anna. At first, Anna thought she was imagining things, but as she read through the messages, her heart began to race. The conversation between Sean and Vanessa was far more than casual chit-chat. They spoke about their upcoming meeting in Rome, about how excited they were to see each other again. Vanessa, it seemed, had been more than just a distant memory in Sean's life. She was very much a part of his present, and their relationship was more than just a friendly reunion. Anna's stomach twisted into knots as she continued to scroll through the messages. The words were clear. "Can't wait to see you in Rome. Have you told Anna yet?" One message read. And then there was another, "The baby's due in 4 months. It's all coming together." The words hit Anna like a slap to the face. Baby? Sean and Vanessa were having a baby together? And not just that, Sean had been hiding this from her. He had been living a double life, one where Anna was the wife, and Vanessa was the real woman in his heart. Anna's hand shook as she forwarded the screenshots to herself, deleted the thread from Sean's phone, and replaced it back on the nightstand as if nothing had happened. But in that moment, everything changed. The world that Anna had so carefully built around herself, the family she had married into, the career she had worked so hard to establish, began to unravel. Anna's mind raced as she processed the information. She had suspected something was wrong, but this was beyond anything she could have imagined. It wasn't just the infidelity, it was the calculated way Sean had hidden it from her, the way he had allowed her to live in a false reality where she was the wife he would always choose. He hadn't just been unfaithful, he had been planning his escape from their marriage for months. He had already made his decision. And, worse, it seemed that the rest of the Caldwell family had been complicit in this plan. But what really made Anna's blood run cold was what came next. The evening after Anna discovered the truth, she found herself alone in the hotel lobby, waiting for Sean and his family to return from an impromptu excursion they had decided to take without her. She had been excluded from the activities once again, but this time, Anna's frustration was replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. She had already learned about the affair. Now, it was time to uncover the full scope of the betrayal. As she waited, she took out her phone and began to do something she never thought she would have to do. She accessed Sean's email account. She had known the password for years, a small convenience that had once meant nothing. But now, it was a key to unraveling everything. What she found was far worse than she could have imagined. Among the thousands of emails, there were a few that stood out, emails from the Caldwell family attorney, detailing a divorce settlement that had already been prepared. The document was chilling. It wasn't just a standard divorce agreement, it was a full plan. The settlement offered Anna a fraction of what she was entitled to, a paltry sum compared to the assets she knew the family had stashed away. But what made her stomach turn was the script. Yes, a script. The family had already planned how the divorce would be presented to the public. They had orchestrated the timing, the public announcement, and the narrative they would feed to their society friends. The script called for Sean to announce the divorce during Eleanor's birthday dinner, spinning it as a mutual decision, one that was amicable and necessary for the family's well-being. The goal was clear, Anna would be the one to take the fall. She would be the one portrayed as difficult, the one who couldn't handle the pressures of being a Caldwell. This was it. This was the moment that changed everything. Anna had suspected something was off, but this was the final confirmation. She wasn't just the victim of an affair, she was the victim of a carefully orchestrated plan to remove her from the Caldwell family, to erase her from Sean's life as if she had never mattered. Anna's hands trembled as she read through the details of the divorce plan, but a strange sense of clarity washed over her. She had always prided herself on being in control, on making sure every detail was perfect in her professional life. Now, it was time to take that control back, not just for the event in Rome, but for her own life. The moment she had dreaded for so long had arrived. The family had never truly accepted her. She had always been the outsider, the self-made woman who didn't fit their carefully constructed world. But now, she knew the truth. This wasn't about her not fitting in. This was about them wanting to get rid of her, to discard her as easily as they would an unwanted accessory. But Anna wasn't going to let them. Not this time. The revelation was the turning point, the moment Anna finally understood the full extent of the betrayal. It wasn't just about the affair, or the deceit, or the lies. It was about the entire Caldwell family's plan to destroy her. And it was time for her to take control of the situation. No more being passive. No more letting them decide her fate. Anna had always been the one to pull the strings behind the scenes in her career, but now, she was going to pull the strings in her own life. As she sat in the hotel lobby, staring at the email in front of her, a small, determined smile spread across her face. The fight wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. The family might have thought they had the upper hand, but they had underestimated Anna. She wasn't going to be the one humiliated at the dinner. No, this time, she was going to be the one who turned the tables. The calm that had settled over her in that moment was something she had never felt before. She wasn't going to be their victim. She was going to reclaim her power. The next move was hers, and the Caldwell family would never see it coming. The air in Rome that evening was thick with anticipation. The streets were quieter than usual, as if the city itself was holding its breath for what was about to unfold. In the heart of the city, perched above the Colosseum with its breathtaking view, an elegant Michelin-starred restaurant had been carefully prepared for the night's celebration. The grand event, the one Anna had poured her soul into planning, was finally here. Eleanor Caldwell's 70th birthday was meant to be a moment of triumph, a testament to the family's wealth, power, and influence. But for Anna, it was the beginning of something far more significant. This wasn't just another event. This was her final act of defiance, the moment she would reclaim control of her life, her marriage, and her story. What should have been a celebration was about to become the stage for her ultimate revelation. She had spent days preparing for this night, rehearsing every detail, ensuring everything was perfect, down to the last place setting. But there was one detail she hadn't anticipated, her own exclusion. As the guests began to arrive, Anna moved seamlessly through the venue, her every step a picture of grace and precision. She made sure the flowers were arranged just right, the champagne was chilled and waiting, and the carefully planned 7-course tasting menu was ready to be served. This wasn't just about making sure the event went smoothly. This was about control, about proving to herself and to everyone watching that no one, especially not the Caldwell family, could take away her sense of self-worth. But even as she orchestrated every moment, the tension inside Anna began to build. She knew what was coming. She could feel it in the air, like the calm before a storm. The family was already seated, their laughter echoing through the restaurant, their voices rising in that familiar cadence of privilege, as though they owned the very space they inhabited. Sean was there, of course, looking as perfectly put together as ever, his smile a little too bright. And there was Eleanor, resplendent in her designer dress, sitting at the head of the table, as if nothing had changed. Anna walked into the restaurant at exactly the right moment, fashionably late, as she had planned, a touch of drama that would set the stage. She was poised, her expression neutral, but beneath her calm exterior, her mind was racing. The revelation had come earlier, like a jolt to her system, when she discovered the draft of the separation papers. But in that moment, as she entered the dining room, everything else faded away. The anger, the hurt, the confusion, they all dissipated, leaving only a singular thought: this is it. It's time to take control. As Anna approached the long, round table, her heart didn't race, it steadied. She could feel every eye in the room on her, the whispers that followed her from the moment she walked in, but she remained focused, unwavering. This was her moment, and she would own it. She moved past the empty chairs, scanning the seating arrangement with practiced precision. Her eyes flicked to the empty spot next to Sean. Her place setting was missing. She stopped for a moment, pretending to look at the table, as though she had missed something. But she hadn't. She knew exactly what was going on. The seat that had been meticulously planned for her was gone. The message was clear. The Caldwell family had once again shown their true colors. This wasn't just a mistake, it was deliberate. It was part of their plan to humiliate her, to make her feel small, to show her that she was not truly welcome in their world. They had orchestrated her exclusion from this perfect evening, just as they had orchestrated her entire fall from grace in their eyes. But Anna was no longer the naive woman she had been when she first met Sean. She wasn't going to let them have the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. Sean's face flickered with confusion as he glanced up at her, his usual charm fading just slightly. "What's going on, Anna?" he asked, his voice strained with the faintest trace of concern. But it was too late for concern. Anna had already made her decision. She wasn't going to react with tears or anger. She wasn't going to give them the drama they wanted. Instead, she smiled, just a small, knowing smile that spoke volumes. She had known this moment would come. She had prepared for it. And now, it was time to take control. "Seems I'm not family," Anna said calmly, her voice steady, betraying none of the storm that had been brewing inside her for months. Her words hung in the air, a statement of truth that no one could deny. There it was, the moment of realization. The moment when the Caldwells understood that their plan had just backfired. They had hoped she would break down, make a scene, give them the excuse they needed to cast her aside as an emotional wreck. But Anna wasn't the emotional mess they had been expecting. She wasn't the wife who would collapse under the pressure of their judgment. No, she was someone else now. She was someone who knew her worth, and she wasn't going to let anyone take that away from her. The family froze, their laughter dying instantly as they processed what had just happened. The smug smiles faltered. Eleanor's eyes narrowed, her lips tightening in a thin line. Richard, sitting at the head of the table, looked like he had just been slapped. Melissa, Sean's sister, was the first to speak, but her voice lacked the usual confidence. "What do you mean, Anna?" she asked, her tone a little too sharp. Anna didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence spoke louder than words ever could. The table, once filled with laughter and conversation, was now a picture of confusion and discomfort. All of them were staring at her, trying to piece together what was happening, but Anna was already turning away. She walked out of the restaurant with the same calm, deliberate steps she had entered with. She didn't rush. She didn't look back. She knew what was coming next. Her plan was already in motion, and there was nothing the Caldwells could do to stop it. The shockwave of her exit rippled through the family. Sean's voice followed her, calling out, "Anna, wait. We can fix this." But Anna didn't respond. She didn't need to. She had taken control of the situation, and the look on Sean's face, his confusion, his desperation, was all the confirmation she needed that she had made the right choice. As Anna stepped out onto the quiet streets of Rome, her heart beat steadily, almost methodically. The night was far from over, but the first stage of her plan had been executed flawlessly. The rest would follow soon enough. Anna didn't feel victorious. She didn't feel bitter. She felt free. The weight of the years of betrayal, the quiet humiliation she had endured, was gone. The family had underestimated her. They had thought she would be the one to crumble under pressure. But they didn't know Anna. She was stronger than they could ever imagine. Now, the real work would begin. The plans she had set in motion were about to unfold, and the Caldwells would feel the full weight of her defiance. But for now, as she stood on the steps of the restaurant, Anna allowed herself a moment of calm. She had played her part. And in doing so, she had changed the course of her life forever. The storm had arrived. And this time, it was hers to control. The events of the evening felt like they were unfolding in slow motion. Anna had always prided herself on being in control, on knowing exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. But tonight, as she stood outside the Michelin-starred restaurant, the moment that had been months in the making was finally here. The moment of reckoning. The moment when she would take back everything the Caldwell family had tried to strip from her. They had underestimated her, thought they could humiliate her, but now it was time for them to face the consequences of their actions. The streets of Rome were quiet, save for the occasional whisper of the wind and the soft murmur of tourists walking past. Anna pulled out her phone and opened the event management app she had spent years perfecting. It wasn't just a business tool, it was her weapon. She had built an empire of her own with this app, transforming events from mere gatherings into once-in-a-lifetime experiences. The same skills that had earned her the trust of the city's elite would now be used to tear down the very family that had betrayed her. In the 30 minutes it took for the Caldwells to realize what had happened, Anna didn't waste a single second. She was methodical, calculating, and precise. Everything she had learned over the years, every lesson about power and control, was now at her fingertips. This was her moment of power. They thought they had planned her downfall, but Anna wasn't about to let that happen. Instead, she was going to destroy everything they had built, their wealth, their status, their carefully constructed image. As Anna opened the app, her fingers moved with practiced ease. She could hear Sean's voice in her mind, desperately calling after her, but she ignored him. He had no idea what was coming. None of them did. With a swipe of her finger, she cancelled the private transportation she had arranged for the family's grand tour of the city. The sleek black Mercedes that had been waiting at the airport for them would never show up. The vineyards they were supposed to visit the next day? Gone. The private Vatican tour, the yacht for their Amalfi Coast excursion, the villa they were supposed to stay at in Tuscany, each reservation disappeared from her phone, as if they had never existed. Anna didn't just cancel these plans. She reversed the deposits she had made using her own company's credit line. She transferred the funds back into her account, ensuring that the Caldwells would be left with nothing. The vendors who had been so excited about the bookings? They were now aware that the luxury they had been promised was no longer coming. Anna's actions were swift, but they were not impulsive. Every move was calculated, every decision weighed for its impact on the Caldwell family. It wasn't just about the money, though. That was a small part of it. The real impact would come when the family realized what had been taken from them, not just the experiences they had planned for months, but their carefully curated image. The Caldwells had spent years building their reputation, positioning themselves as a family of wealth and influence. But in the next 30 minutes, Anna would expose them for what they truly were, nothing more than a house of cards, ready to collapse. As the minutes ticked by, Anna leaned back against the cool stone wall of the restaurant, the faint sounds of the dinner party still echoing inside. She could hear their laughter, their pretentious chatter, their insincere compliments. But none of it mattered anymore. They thought they could humiliate her, but they hadn't realized the true extent of her power. Anna wasn't just the event planner, they had made her the villain in their story, but now, she was the one writing the ending. 30 minutes passed, and the phone began to buzz with incoming messages. First, there were the standard texts from Sean, annoyed, then confused, then increasingly desperate. He had no idea what was happening, and that made Anna smile. His carefully crafted world was falling apart, and he didn't even realize it yet. "Anna, what have you done?" he texted, his tone growing more frantic with each message. "The vendors are calling. Why is the vineyard canceling our reservation? Where are you? You need to fix this," came another message. Anna didn't respond. She didn't need to. She already knew what she was doing, and more importantly, she knew what the family would be facing in the coming hours. This wasn't just about canceling trips. It was about breaking their illusions. The reality of their financial situation was about to hit them hard, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The next message came from Melissa, Sean's sister. "This is ridiculous. What's going on?" Mom's furious. Anna felt a flicker of satisfaction. Good. Let them feel the fury. Let them see the cracks in their perfect little world. She didn't owe them anything, not anymore. Their world had been built on lies and manipulation, and it was time to expose it for everyone to see. But it wasn't just the family members who were starting to feel the pressure. Word was already spreading through Rome's high-end hospitality network. The Caldwells had always been seen as the epitome of wealth and status, but tonight, Anna was about to destroy that image. She had worked with some of the best vendors in the city, and now they were all aware of the family's financial problems. One by one, the phone calls and emails started coming in, cancellations, refunds, and requests for upfront payments. The vendors who had once been eager to work with the Caldwells now had a different view of the family. The network of luxury services, which the Caldwells had so carefully cultivated, was beginning to turn on them. The restaurant where they had planned the grand dinner? Anna's email had already been sent, and the manager had been given explicit instructions. The Caldwells would need to pay up front if they wanted to continue their celebration. And that was just the beginning. Anna couldn't help but feel a strange sense of satisfaction as she watched the chaos unfold. She had spent years being underestimated, belittled, and dismissed. But now, the Caldwells were the ones who were powerless. The family that had tried to exclude her, that had tried to humiliate her, was now helpless in the face of their own impending collapse. As the minutes passed, Anna could feel the weight of her decisions. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about something deeper, something more important. It was about reclaiming her sense of power. It was about proving that she wasn't the outsider, the unsuitable wife. She was Anna Morgan, self-made, unstoppable, and capable of bringing even the mightiest empire to its knees. But Anna's work wasn't done. She still had one more step to take. The final move. The moment when the Caldwells would fully realize just how far their carefully crafted empire had crumbled. She stood up from her resting place against the stone wall and, with a steady breath, walked back into the restaurant. The last act was about to begin. The family was still inside, blissfully unaware of what had just happened. They were sitting down to dinner, still laughing and pretending that nothing had changed. Anna stepped into the room, and the chatter immediately died down. 12 pairs of eyes turned toward her, confusion and uncertainty written across their faces. Sean was the first to speak. "Anna, what's going on?" he asked, but this time, his voice was different. It wasn't the confident tone of a man who had everything under control. It was the voice of someone who knew he was losing everything. Anna smiled, a small but powerful smile, and walked straight to the head of the table where Eleanor sat, still looking smug. "You wanted a perfect evening," Anna said softly, her voice carrying across the room. "But there's no such thing as perfection, is there?" Eleanor's eyes narrowed as Anna continued, "The vineyard? Gone. The yacht? Cancelled. Your villa? No longer available. The only thing that's left is the truth. The truth that you've been living a lie." The realization hit them like a freight train. The perfect world they had so carefully built was crashing down around them. And it wasn't just the cancellations. It was the knowledge that everything they had worked so hard to protect, their reputation, their wealth, their status, was now in the hands of the one person they had underestimated the most, Anna Morgan. As Anna turned and walked away, she didn't look back. There was no need. The family's world was already crumbling, and it was all thanks to her. She had taken control. And in doing so, she had shown them just how fragile their empire really was. Anna didn't need to stay and watch their destruction. She had already won. The night was supposed to be theirs, Eleanor Caldwell's 70th birthday, the event of the season. A celebration of wealth, power, and family tradition. The kind of night that would be remembered by everyone who mattered, a perfect reflection of the Caldwell legacy. Anna had worked tirelessly to ensure everything was flawless. Every detail was meticulously planned, the venue, the catering, the luxury cars, the exclusive tours. It was meant to be her crowning achievement. But instead, it was the night that would mark the beginning of the family's downfall. Anna stood outside the restaurant, her phone buzzing with messages from Sean. She could feel the tension rising in her chest, but it wasn't the kind of tension that comes with fear or anxiety. No, this was something else. This was power. This was control. The world the Caldwells had worked so hard to build, their carefully curated image of perfection, was about to come crashing down. The last few months had been filled with small, subtle moments of realization. Anna had always been an outsider in the Caldwell family, but lately, the exclusion had become more apparent, more deliberate. The missing seat at the dinner table that night wasn't just a mistake, it was part of their plan. They had orchestrated her removal from their perfect world. They thought they could cast her aside, that they could humiliate her publicly and be done with it. But they didn't realize who they were dealing with. They had underestimated Anna. And tonight, she was going to make them regret that. Inside the restaurant, the Caldwells were still celebrating, oblivious to what had just happened. They were enjoying their champagne, the rich food, the expensive wine, the lavish setting, all while Anna was outside, taking control of their fate. Every second that passed, every message she sent, secured her position. She wasn't just the event planner anymore. She was the one holding the strings. Anna wasn't in the mood to gloat. She didn't need to parade around her victory. The satisfaction she felt came from a deeper place, a place of quiet, steady power. As Sean's frantic texts kept flooding in, she calmly picked up her phone and began to type. Her fingers moved quickly, decisively. There was no hesitation. She sent a message to the hotel, confirming that all reservations for the upcoming days were cancelled. The beautiful villa in Tuscany that they had reserved for the family? Gone. The yacht they were supposed to take along the Amalfi Coast? Cancelled. Every luxurious aspect of their carefully planned itinerary was being undone, one message at a time. But she didn't stop there. Anna had made sure that her company's credit line was the one that had secured the deposits for everything. Now, as she moved through the app, she reversed every transaction. The luxury cars that were supposed to take the Caldwells on their private tours? Gone. The vineyard they were supposed to visit tomorrow? Cancelled. The entire trip that had been so carefully planned for months, so carefully curated to uphold their image, was now falling apart. And it was all thanks to Anna. It wasn't just about the logistics, though. It was about sending a message. The Caldwells had spent so much time and energy building a world of wealth and status, a world where they could look down on others and dismiss anyone who didn't fit into their mold. But Anna wasn't like them. She had built her own empire. She had created her own identity, and tonight, she was going to show them that their wealth and power meant nothing if they didn't have the one thing that mattered most, respect. She could hear the laughter coming from the dining room, the sound of clinking glasses, the familiar hum of high society conversation. But none of it meant anything now. None of it could save them. As she hit the final send on her messages, Anna felt a strange calm wash over her. It was as if the last few months of frustration, of feeling like an outsider, had melted away. Now, she was the one in control. And the Caldwells? They were about to feel the consequences of their arrogance. Anna stepped back into the restaurant, her presence almost magnetic. The energy in the room shifted the moment she entered. The Caldwells were still seated at the long table, surrounded by their friends and family, basking in the glow of their own self-importance. But now, their world was beginning to unravel. Sean's expression faltered as he saw her re-enter the room. He had been expecting her to come back, to beg for forgiveness, to apologize for causing a scene. But Anna didn't need to apologize. She didn't need to explain herself. She had already made her decision. And she wasn't going to let them dictate the narrative anymore. Sean's eyes locked onto hers, and for the first time that night, there was a flicker of uncertainty in his gaze. "Anna, where have you been?" "What's going on?" he asked, his voice a mix of confusion and desperation. Anna didn't answer right away. She didn't need to. She could feel the eyes of the entire room on her, waiting for her to break, to make a scene. But she wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Instead, she walked slowly toward the table, her gaze sweeping across the faces of the family members who had all played a part in her humiliation. Eleanor, sitting at the head of the table, watched her with a thinly veiled smirk on her face, but Anna saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes. Richard, the stoic father, glanced nervously at his wife, then back at Anna, clearly unsure of what to expect. Melissa and Thomas, Sean's siblings, looked uncomfortable, their smiles frozen in place, as if they knew they were witnessing something that was going to change everything. Anna stopped just short of the table, letting the silence stretch out for a moment. Her heart was steady, her breathing even, but inside, there was a quiet storm brewing. She had spent so long trying to fit into their world, trying to prove herself worthy of their approval. But now, she realized something: she didn't need their approval. She didn't need to fit into their world. She had her own world. And it was time for her to take back control of it. Finally, she spoke, her voice clear and steady. "Seems I'm not family," she said, the words ringing out with a calm finality that sent a chill through the room. The message was simple, but its impact was immense. The smiles that had once graced the Caldwell family's faces faltered, their smug expressions turning to confusion, then to fear. They had all underestimated her. They had all thought they could humiliate her, push her aside, and make her feel small. But Anna wasn't small. She was powerful. And she had just taken everything from them. The room was still for a moment, as if time itself had frozen. And then, chaos erupted. Sean was the first to speak, his voice tinged with panic. "Anna, what are you talking about? You can't do this. You can't just walk away." His words were laced with desperation, but Anna wasn't moved. She had heard it all before. The empty promises. The false apologies. It didn't matter anymore. She had already made her decision. "I already have," Anna replied calmly. "And you're going to have to figure out how to pay for this dinner, because everything you planned is cancelled. Everything you thought you had? Gone." The reality of the situation started to sink in. The Caldwells, the family who had so carefully cultivated an image of perfection, were now scrambling to understand what had happened. The perfect evening had turned into a nightmare, and they had no one to blame but themselves. Anna didn't stay to watch them flounder. She didn't need to. Her actions had already spoken louder than any words could. As she turned and walked away, she could feel the weight of the world lifting off her shoulders. She had taken control of the narrative. The Caldwells' carefully constructed world had crumbled, and Anna was the one who had brought it down. The last few months of frustration, of being overlooked and underestimated, had led her to this moment. And now, as she stepped out into the night, she knew one thing for certain: she was no longer the outsider. She was the one who held the power. And the Caldwells? They were about to learn that you can't destroy someone's life without consequences. The final act had been played. The empire had fallen. And Anna? She was free. The tension in the restaurant was unbearable. The once harmonious sounds of clinking glasses and polite chatter had been replaced by an oppressive silence, as if the entire room had collectively realized that something had gone terribly wrong. Anna's words had hung in the air like a detonated bomb, shattering the facade that the Caldwell family had so carefully built. "Seems I'm not family." The simple truth in those 4 words caused the very foundation of their perfect world to tremble. Anna didn't need to shout. She didn't need to make a scene or hurl insults at them. That had never been her style. No, her power lay in the quiet confidence with which she carried herself. She had always known that the Caldwells, wealthy, proud, and sure of their status, would never understand what it meant to truly be humble, to truly work for what you had. But tonight, she had flipped the script. She had given them the harshest lesson of all, the true cost of their arrogance. And now, they were left to face the consequences of their betrayal. As Anna turned on her heel and began to walk out of the restaurant, she felt a weight she hadn't realized was there begin to lift from her shoulders. It wasn't just the weight of tonight's humiliation, or even the betrayal that had been building for years. It was the weight of being seen, being heard, being treated as less than, when she had always been more than they ever gave her credit for. Tonight, Anna had shown them exactly who she was, and who she would never let them make her again: weak, small, or insignificant. Every step Anna took away from the table, away from the people who had tried to tear her down, was a step toward reclaiming her life, her dignity, and her future. She walked with purpose, her back straight and her head held high. The Caldwell's stunned silence was like music to her ears. The power dynamic had shifted, and it was her turn to control the narrative. Behind her, the family's reactions were immediate. The shock on their faces was impossible to ignore, but it wasn't just surprise. It was panic. It was the unmistakable feeling of a carefully constructed world collapsing in real time. They didn't know what to do, where to turn, or how to make sense of what had just happened. Anna, who had always been the other, the outsider, the woman they had never fully accepted, had just turned the tables. She wasn't begging for their approval anymore. She was walking away, and there was nothing they could do to stop her. Sean was the first to break the silence. His voice, once filled with charm and confidence, was now shaky, laced with panic. "Anna, wait. We can fix this. You don't have to do this. Please, let's talk." His desperation was palpable, and for a moment, Anna almost felt a pang of sympathy. But she quickly shut it down. This wasn't about sympathy. This was about her reclaiming the power she had allowed them to strip away for so long. Anna didn't turn around. She didn't need to. She had already made her decision. There was no need for words, no need for apologies. She had spent years in this family, fighting for a seat at the table, fighting for her place in Sean's world. And tonight, they had made it clear, she was never going to be welcome. They had excluded her, humiliated her, and tried to erase her from their perfect narrative. But that was before Anna realized her own power. That was before she understood that her value wasn't tied to their approval. As she stepped outside the restaurant, the cool night air hit her skin like a refreshing breeze, clearing away the last remnants of the emotional fog she had been living in for years. For the first time in a long while, Anna felt free. She felt lighter. She felt like she was finally stepping into her own story, one that wasn't dictated by the Caldwells, but by her own choices, her own strength. But while Anna was walking away, the family behind her was left to pick up the pieces of their shattered world. They had been living in a carefully constructed bubble of perfection, wealth, status, and power all neatly tied together with a ribbon. But now that bubble had burst, and the aftermath was just beginning to unfold. Inside, the Caldwells were in complete chaos. Sean, unable to grasp what had just happened, was still scrambling for a solution. His voice was frantic, his words tumbling out in a rushed attempt to fix everything. "Anna, please. I don't know what to do. Just come back. We'll talk about this. I promise, we'll make it right." But the words were hollow. Anna could hear the desperation in his voice, but she no longer cared. She had heard it all before, the promises, the apologies, the lies. They meant nothing now. It was too late. Sean's world, the one he had so carefully built, was crumbling just as quickly as the facade his family had worked so hard to maintain. Eleanor's face, once confident and proud, had turned pale. She was the matriarch, the one who had always controlled everything in the family with a firm grip, but now, she was visibly shaken. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an explanation, for someone to step in and fix what had just gone wrong. But no one could. The damage was done. Her carefully curated image was unraveling in front of her eyes, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The family had always prided themselves on their reputation, on their ability to control the narrative. But Anna had just taken that narrative from them. They had tried to cast her as the villain in their perfect story, but now, the truth was clear, they were the ones who were corrupt, who were driven by ego and self-interest. They were the ones who had betrayed Anna, who had tried to force her into a role she would never fit into. And now, they would have to live with the consequences. As Anna made her way through the streets of Rome, she couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. She had fought for her place in their world for so long, but now, she realized that she didn't need it. She didn't need their approval, their validation, or their acceptance. She had everything she needed within herself. She was strong, capable, and worthy without them. And tonight, she had proven that. Back in the restaurant, the family was still in shock, struggling to comprehend what had just happened. Their lavish dinner, their celebration of wealth and status, was turning into a disaster. The guests who had come to admire the Caldwell family for their success were now witnessing the unraveling of their carefully curated image. The illusion of perfection was shattered, and there was no way to put the pieces back together. But Anna wasn't concerned with what happened next. She wasn't interested in watching the aftermath unfold. She had already walked away. The damage had been done. The Caldwells' empire was crumbling, and it was all because of their own arrogance, their own refusal to see her as an equal. They had tried to break her, but instead, they had set her free. As Anna continued her walk through the quiet streets, a sense of pride filled her chest. She had done it. She had taken control of her own narrative, and in doing so, she had reclaimed the one thing the Caldwells could never take from her, her dignity. She had finally found the freedom she had been searching for, and it was hers to keep. The night had been full of surprises, but for Anna, the biggest surprise of all was realizing that she didn't need them. She didn't need the Caldwells, their wealth, or their approval. She had built her own empire, one that was based on respect, not status. And now, she was free to live her life on her own terms, without anyone telling her who she should be. For Anna, it wasn't about revenge. It was about liberation. And as she walked away from the ruins of the Caldwell Empire, she knew that her life was just beginning. The future was hers to shape, and she was ready to embrace it with open arms.
That's it for today's story on Life Reflections. I'd love to hear your take. Drop a comment below with your thoughts or a story of your own. If you enjoyed this, give a like and subscribe to keep the reflections coming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.